Hi guys, it's Yvette. It is Monday and it's time for Lunch and Learn. I'm excited today, guys. I'm so motivated this Monday, like never before, really. I just got back from Chicago on yesterday from the Boss Network influencers event that was held on Saturday. And when I tell you it was filled with inspiration, it really was. I had the opportunity and a privilege to speak on a platform with some very dynamic and phenomenal women. And I don't say that lightly. I mean, when I say these sisters got it together, they have it together. And one of the things that excited me about being there, not only did I get a chance to speak and to share on recalibrating for success, but I also had an opportunity to just learn and listen to the other speakers. And I came back with a wealth of information. One of the things that I noticed that was a common thread, I'm just sharing as people are joining. We haven't actually got into Lunch and Learn yet, but because I told you I'm so motivated coming back from Chicago. But one of the things I noticed in each of the ladies that spoke at the Boss Influencers event was that they each had taken the time to do the work of personal growth and development. And you know, guys, I'm really huge on that. That's what I love teaching and talking about. And because it is the foundation for everything. It's not just, you know, helping my clients earn more money and to articulate and get clarity around who they are and what they want in life. But I realize all of that starts with the foundation of personal growth and development. So as each of the speakers shared their personal stories, I could see and hear that, how they had invested into a coach or more education and, you know, certifications and spending time alone. And that's actually what I shared with the ladies. Hi, Liney's good to see you. That's what I shared with the people that were there on Saturday, the importance of taking time to pause and reflect and just spend that time understanding and becoming more aware of who you are as an individual, and it better helps you to define and understand your purpose and set goals. But if any of you are interested that did not attend the Boss Network Influencer event on last week, over the weekend, well, I'm saying last week, over the weekend, Kamika Smith, the founder and owner of Boss Network, did provide live feeds of the messages, and I believe they're still posted on Facebook. So if you could go over, you know, to her page, and perhaps you can catch some of the videos. So it was awesome information, and I think the information will inspire you just as much as it did me. So guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. I like to just start off with a little announcements. I just told you this past weekend I was in Chicago speaking there along with the other influencers at the Boss Network event. Cupcakes, cocktails, and conversations. And we had some great conversations. And I just want to say kudos to the men who came out. You know, Boss Network, the Boss stands for Bringing Out Successful Sisters, but just like the people often say, well, a little saying is that behind every successful man is a woman. Well, for many of us who are married, we also realize the importance of the reverse of that. So my husband was there as well, and he's definitely not only the head of my life, my family, our family, I should say, but he's also my backbone as well. So couldn't do what I'm doing without him. So kudos to all the other men who were there as well. And for my friends who came out, and I just can't say enough for those who came even from Atlanta, who know me and was there supporting, and then my friends there in Chicago who showed up and showed out. So much love to all of you guys. So I also want to talk about what's coming up. So, you know, we're doing our city tour for Recalibrate, Navigating the Job Market with Confidence. So our next tour stop is next week. That's Thursday. We will be at the Georgia Tech bookstore, the Barnes & Noble bookstore there on the Georgia Tech campus. So we're going to be talking about and giving tips on how to land your first real job. So for those of you who have students or perhaps is a student, then come on out and join us. You don't have to be a Georgia Tech student to participate. I will be doing the talk, giving the tips on, you know, what a person can do to increase their chance and opportunities of landing that first job. As you all know, A college degree alone will not get you a good job. We all know that there is a lot of competition in the marketplace. And so I'm going to be giving tips on how a person can get ahead, and not only just during the interviewing process, but also how do you find those opportunities, because research, research shows that the majority of job opportunities are not even posted on job boards. So understanding that and how to navigate a system where you may not have direct access to something. So I'm going to talk about all those things. And for many of you, I know you're looking at second careers, and a lot of people are retiring, or they've been a part of a layoff and they've gone back to school to get additional training and retooling so they can start navigating a different job path. If that's you and you're coming up on graduation and looking to get in the job market, come on out to Georgia Tech. Next week, that will be November 8th. I'll be there at 7 p.m. Again, we'll start off with the talk and then do a book signing. And you get a chance to ask me questions directly. So I hope to see you guys. So we're going to move into the questions. So I promised last week that I would go ahead and start addressing some of the questions that we've been receiving via the website at YvetteGavin.com. So for each of you who have a question, you can also post questions in this Lunch and Learn, and I'll try to answer them before we finish today as well. But you can always reach out to me that way. I answer each and every question that comes to the company. That's a commitment that I've made to each of you, that I will always do that. Now, depending on my schedule, it's not always immediate, but I do get to each one. And I give the best answer I can without having to go into a full coaching session with you. So some of them, rarely are they really just short answers. I do try to serve and give in that way. So, and people actually have sent me some questions on LinkedIn as well, and I've been responding to those as well. So here's the first one that I wanted to share on today's session. Chicago was like awesome. I did talk about it at the very top. So if you get a chance to go back, Pastor Benefield, and just at the beginning, I was just sharing some of the things that I picked up and grew from as a result. But it was a sellout event. Let me just say that. I didn't say that earlier. And men and women were there in attendance. So that was a little surprise to me, even though James was there. But we had a phenomenal time. And more importantly was the messaging that went out. And it was highly inspirational as well as motivational. So it was good. So this first question here is, what do I say when asked for salary expectations when I want to make more money than I am currently making? And so there's not just one quick answer, right? So basically my advice and how you address this is understanding your value. So first thing is take away the notion that I must just speak to what my current salary is or what the salary I was making at the last job was. And that's the mistake that a lot of people make. So for instance, if a person is currently making $80,000 at the current job or the last job, but they desire to get into the six-figure bracket, and when they're asked on a job interview, their expectation, the whole key here is that the word is expectation and not so much, well, what were they paying you or what are they paying you? So focus more on your expectations. In your expectations, you want to shape them around what you know and truly believe is your worth, your value. And your worth and value, I talk a lot about value, but it's not just because you want it, right? I could easily say I want $1 million, to be doing the work that I'm doing, but I have to be realistic about what I'm bringing to the table and what is a fair market value for that service. And at what level do I bring it as well? And so you have to factor in all of those things. So when I look at my value, I weigh in several factors. One of the first things I start looking at is what does the industry, and I just mentioned that, what does the market bear for this industry that I'm in? And one way you can find that information out, because no company is going to really tell you that unless you just happen to have someone in HR who is a confidant or a friend. But I want to give you 3 websites that I frequently use. I use them even today with my clients as I'm helping them to come up with a number. I typically like to work with ranges though, and that's how I coach my clients as well, to come up with a salary range based on my knowledge of their experience and where they want to go and all that. So it's a lot that goes in as I'm coaching clients to come up with that number or range. But anyway, here are the three that I use. Salary.com. I'm sure most of you may be familiar with that, but this is that research part. I also use compensation.com. And there's this thing called payscale.com. I go there more than anything. But you can go to any one of these websites and look up your industry. And then you go from your industry to the job title. So here's the tricky part when you start looking at job titles. Every company doesn't use the same job title to mean the same thing. So there are some companies that will refer to people as engineers, but they're not really engineers. And so you want to, so you have to spend some time on the site and try to understand that. Also, one of the reasons I like Payscale too, salary.com as well, they'll actually tell you what certain companies, they'll give you information based on a particular company, and you're in the company that you're looking to work for, or maybe it's your current company and you want to try to negotiate a higher salary. You could have, that's very meaningful data when you get that information about a particular company, and those sites will give you some guidance there as well. Here's the other thing that I want you to always consider when you're trying to determine a salary-based value, right, for what you're doing. You also want to add in your experience. So a person that has more experience can start looking at taking what their expectations are for their pay a little higher than someone that comes to that particular type role with no experience or less experience. So your experience weigh in on your value as well. Then the next thing I think of is you want to consider location. And I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. Is not location because you work, the office is a long place from where your home is. Nobody's paying you for that commute. But people will pay for this. And I actually had this happen with me with one of my clients. She's an attorney. Well, she's no longer a client because now she's landed a job, and so she's doing well. But when we were working together, she was at this place of looking for a new type position. And so she had an opportunity to take a job in California. The thing is, she was making about high 90s at the time. So she does have a law degree. She is an attorney, but she mostly look at contracts, and she was doing that work out of her home. So it's like she had a home-based business, her own practice, if you will, with study clients, and her compensation was in, the high 90s, not quite 100K yet. But when they asked her at this new opportunity what were her salary expectations, she said 100,000. So all that happened before she actually engaged me, but we quickly corrected that. And here's why: because she was living in Georgia at the time, and the offer was in California. And I don't have to tell any of you, right? If you you know what I'm going to say. The cost of living in California is much higher than the cost of living in Georgia. So I'm always looking at where is this job located, because location does matter. And what I would make doing, I'll say coaching in Georgia, it is definitely different than what I would expect to make if I was providing these same services within the state of California. Yes, I have a client right now that I'm working with that lives in California, but my company is based out of Georgia. So my pay scale is based off this geographical location, and I didn't charge her a different fee because she's in California. So keep that in mind too when you're considering that. When I lived in St. Louis, and my salary in St. Louis, cost of living is a little higher in St. Louis, Missouri as well than it is in Atlanta, Georgia. And so when I was looking to relocate from St. Louis to Atlanta, I was really concerned about, will I be able to make the kind of money I was making in St. Louis when I moved back to Georgia? And fortunate for me, I didn't lose that location piece simply because I had so many other things I would bring into the table that the company that was hiring me really wanted. And one was the experience that I had gained while being employed in St. Louis. So that worked out for me, and I actually came to Georgia on a higher pay scale than where I was in St. Louis. So the other thing is you're looking at what you want to say when you're asked about the salary range piece expectation, and what you want to put out there is education matters too. So if you have a college degree, if you have an advanced college degree, if you've invested money on certifications, certain type training, maybe you didn't get a certification with it, but there was some advanced training, not necessarily a degree type program, consider adding those things in as well, because it does matter. So if you're looking at an employee who has a master degree, and then you have one that doesn't, but they may be doing the same type work, we typically will be paying that person who has that master's a little bit more than that person that doesn't, and that happens all the time. And for any of you who think that just because you're doing the same work and you have the same job title as a person that's sitting to your right or your left, if you think the three of you are all making the same salary, I'm here to tell you, I can almost assure you, you're not. You're not. I haven't ever had employees who held the same title, even if it was like quality assurance too. Maybe they both had that. They were still at different pay scales. So it is really important to take the time to understand your value and how to articulate that, and how to be able to express that when asked. Last thing I'll share really quickly on this, and then go to another question, is I remember when I myself was going through, how do I make more money when I go to a new position, right? And how do I articulate that? And so I understood this question when it came in. I said, I remember that back in the 90s. I had that same concern. And I've always been a person who's reached out for coaching and mentoring. And so I actually called up a friend of mine who was in HR and posed this question to him. And I never have forgotten what he taught me. So one of the things he said to me, he said, he knew the company I was working for at the time. He said, well, I know for a fact that you're getting some compensations from that company that most companies don't offer. And he was absolutely right. And so he asked me to put a dollar value on those compensations. And I'm not talking about like insurance, like things like that. So like, I'll give you an example. When I worked at Delta Airlines, I also had free flight privileges. And not only did that, my whole family had them. So that was a dollar value back to us, right? But we also got discounts on hotels and often restaurants and stuff like that. And that was a plethora of other benefits. But if you're not working in the airline industry, so when I left Delta, I wasn't in the airline industry. So I went, I forgot, it was an insurance company, I think, in the IT department. I think it was the one right after that. But anyway, I lost those benefits. And so my friend had taught me earlier how to go in and calculate a fair market value on the benefits from a previous job. So when I left Delta, I was able to do that. And so I calculated what was the actual cost if I was to travel in the coming year as I had traveled in the previous year. So although I had not paid for those flights, but I knew I could easily go online and see what those flights would have cost my family and I added that into my salary compensation. And so when I start talking about expectations at the next job, I include that because I wasn't looking to change my lifestyle. We had learned to travel, and we want to continue to be able to travel. I also did that, another example, if I worked at a company once where not only did I get an annual bonus, but there were also additional bonuses based on performance. And those bonuses were not like cash per se. The company had, this was Merit's motivational company, if any of you are familiar with it. And so what Merit's does, it has this incentive program where you could actually earn fake cash, right? It was like company cash. And they had this huge warehouse with some of the most upscale furnishing and other type things, right, that people would, put in their homes, like even electronic things as well, not just furniture. And so based on performance, you would get this company cash, and you could go into that warehouse and buy anything that you want with that cash. And so what my friend in HR helped me to understand, that was a value that I was going to be losing once I left the company. But I paid taxes on that stuff, right? And so there was other thing he showed me. He said, but the company is saying to the IRS that there is this is truly a monetary value, right? It's not like giving you a box of chocolate or a piece of candy or something. There was some money there that the company actually included as part of my salary when I got my W-2s from them. And so leaving the company meant that I wouldn't have those type benefits, that I had to start paying for furniture if I was going to get it, because at that time my husband and I had never even spent a dime on furniture, but we had the furniture of our liking, our tasting, because we were able to get it that way. So think about where you are and what other non-monetary benefits that you are receiving from your current company, and understand what that value is to you, and then add that, or at least a percentage of it if you're not comfortable with all of it. Last thing I'm going to say about salary. I have been successful at negotiating my salary multiple times. I've never been in a position where I wasn't successful. And why I've always been successful? Because even though I give a range, and I've learned that that's the safest thing to do, to give a range, because if you come in too low, people often start wondering, if you're really the candidate they want, if you don't understand your own value, if you don't understand what this work should be yielding in the market. And then if you come too high, they may just not even consider you anymore, even though they may like you and they may want you. And it really depends on the person who's doing the hiring. There are some hiring managers like myself who I would go and fight for the person I really wanted. And what I mean by that, if what was budgeted for the role was lower than what this person was asking for, but after going through all my interviews, if I really wanted a particular candidate that was expecting a little bit more than what we had budgeted, I was bold enough to go back and start that process of trying to negotiate within my organization to get a little bit more funded for that particular role. And I've been quite successful at doing that. I have had some clients who have made the mistake, and they came to me afterward, who tried to negotiate their salaries on their own and actually talked themselves out of a job. Yeah, that happens too. And so you always want to be able to explain why you are asking for a certain amount, and be able to justify that, quantify that. So don't just pull something out of a hat because it would be a nice salary and you can go buy whatever you want to buy to meet your needs, but be able to express and show that you're worth that, and that what you're going to bring to that company is at that value, if not higher. You really want them to convince them that they're getting you at a bargain, even though it's within what you really want, right? So give that, show that expression of, you getting a deal here too, so this is really a win-win for both of us, because I can come in and do X, Y, and Z for you based on previous experience, and you can prove that. People, will listen, and often will be willing to go back and try to get more money. Hey, hi Danielle, it's good to see you. Thank you, Danielle. So that's good. So I hope that's beneficial. So the second question, and guys, before I read the second one, if any of you who are here live, if you have some additional questions, just type them in, and at the end, I will try to answer your questions as well. But these are questions that have come in to us on our website, and there's one in here that came in from LinkedIn. So the second one is, I have a job offer, but it pays $10,000 less than my current job, and I don't know if I should accept it. And then she says, any advice? And so without knowing, without this person actually being a client, this was just a question that came in, so I don't know this individual. So this is how, so it's really broad. More information will help me to give the person, a more direct and a specific answer, and to help them build a strategy. And that's what the answer is all around. Sometimes it makes sense to take a job that's paying you less than what you're currently making. But it only makes sense when you do it from a strategy perspective. You have a plan in place. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. So there were times, so I actually left Delta. I was talking about Delta earlier. I left Delta Airlines to go into full-time ministry. So about a year into it, I realized, oh man, I am doing absolutely what I love doing, but my son, private school tuition, is important to me as well. And so, and we were just at a place where I needed to be able to bring in income. And so I went back into the marketplace year 2. And so I was in full-time ministry for 2 years, and then I went back into the marketplace. And I took a contract position, an IT position at a company. And so as a contractor, it was a really great salary. I'm not going to, lie about that. A year later, after being a contractor there, I had an opportunity, I had a job offer to go into a full-time position at a company that was very close to my house. But they were not offering for that full-time position the same as I was making as a contractor. I took the job with this in mind. I took in consideration that even though I was making less money than I was as a contractor, I was closer to my home. The job was like 5 miles away from my house. If I wanted to walk to work, I could have walked to work. But I saw money immediately coming back into my pocket because I didn't have to pay all that gas money. The other job, the contract position, was downtown Atlanta. And so it was taking me an hour just to get downtown. So I was burning gas an hour one way from my home. Here I was, in the suburbs, and here's a company in the suburbs that has an IT position. I can do it. They want me. I want them. So I took the job. The other thing I saw too would help me to realize I really wasn't losing. I was also paying for parking at downtown Atlanta. And so immediately I saw savings back into my pocket. So I didn't feel like I needed that full salary that I had before because all of my needs were not the same. The other thing that full-time position gave me was an opportunity to continue to do what I loved doing the most, and that was the ministry work and working with couples. And so because I was closer to home, I could get home and my husband and I could still meet with some of the clients that we were working with at that time, or the couples. And that's exactly what we did. And I wasn't burned out. I wasn't tired because I wasn't frustrated from having, been sitting in all that Atlanta traffic. So you have to look at the totality and not just consider that cash at that moment. Because in essence, I really felt as if most immediately, nothing can go to your peace of mind. And I immediately gained more peace, even though my income directly didn't, it was a little lower. I was very blessed in that decision because 6 months into that new job, I was promoted. And so I took the job, not even a leadership role, it was just a QA analyst position, even though I was a lead where, I had come from. And so I took the job, and 6 months later, my manager came to me and actually asked if I would lead a group of the testers on this particular effort. And so I did. And then it wasn't even another 6 months after that the QA director had said, hey, I see some leadership skills in you that we need, and this project is getting a lot bigger. And they actually pulled me out. And then I started leading a team, not just as a QA lead, but I had taken on a manager's role, and then was eventually fully promoted into a manager. So in less than 12 months and going to a company where I was making less money, I end up making more money than what I had previously left. And that's why I say it's so important to have a strategy and to understand why you're doing what you're doing. So there are some times in order to go forward and further, we have to pull back sometime in order to go higher. So I hope that helps. When I did send this answer back, the young lady sent a message back and she said, yeah, it really did bless her. This next question I am going to answer, it says, I have been asked to do something on my job that is against my morals and values. I'm not sure what to do. I don't know if any of you have faced anything like that. Well, yes, I have, because I actually talk about it in my book, Recalibrate. I can think of two things, but I'll speak to one and I'll share the one that I actually put in the answer to this one. Yes. I don't think, it's not yes, do something that is against your morals and value. I'm sorry about that, guys. But it was more yes in my head, share the story. But what I said, here's Yvette advice, I'm sorry, stumbling on this one. Don't do it. Don't do anything that's against your morals and your values, because you will hate yourself at the end. And even if it is about your job, you are going to be miserable because it is against everything that's in you. I know one day I am going to write and pen some work on cognitive dissonance, because ever since I became really aware of what it is, and it has just really resonated within me, and I see it so much in our everyday living, how people have two opposing belief systems, right? And this is what will happen if a person is forced or coerced or do something out of fear because they're afraid of losing income, but it goes against what they really believe. It goes against their morals. It goes against their value. And typically when we do that, we're not very good at it anyway. We're not effective at what we're doing anyway. So here's what I propose. I'm not suggesting that you immediately go quit a job because you've been asked to do something that's against your morals and your values. This is what I know can work. So at my last company, I was unaware when I took the job. I was leading a group of video testers for a cable company. And so I know video, okay, but I wasn't aware that there was a piece of that job where the testers in the lab were being asked to test adult entertainment content. And so one of the contracting firms that company was using had actually had included in their contract that none of their resources would touch any of that type of content. So one of my leads came into the office, and she was distraught because it had been told to her that she was going to have to test it as a full-time employee because the contractors couldn't do that. She walks into my office and visibly upset, and she asked me, did she have to do it? First of all, guys, honestly, I did know. I mean, I maybe been on the job probably about a good 3 months when this came up. And so I'm still learning, you know, the landscape and everything. So anyway, no, nobody have to do anything. But I want you to start thinking beyond just the most obvious thing in front of you. And so what we were able to do to prevent the any employees. So I can, you know, one of the things I love about, and I'm very, I feel good about my work at that last company. There were many things, but this is definitely one. Under my leadership, not one person tests adult content, and here's why. Because I came up with a solution to that. And so I have this thing about, one thing I live by is never ask someone to do something that I myself is not willing to do. So Yvette Gavin was not willing to go into a lab or any other place and view adult content and test it in order to get paid or to maintain a job. So I would not want anybody under my leadership to do that either. Although, guys, there were some guys on the team who raised their hands and volunteered and said, well, Yvette, I don't mind doing this. I'll do it if she doesn't want to do it. But it wasn't even about that. Again, I didn't want anybody on my team doing it at all because it wasn't something that I would be willing to do myself. It goes against my morals and my values as well. And I personally didn't want to be working next to any guy who's been in a lab all day looking at adult content. So what I did some research, and I made a proposal to my leadership team. And this was it. I always say if you solve the problem for a person, that's what they really care about. And I began to ask leading questions. Why were we testing it? Well, obvious reasons, Yvette. We need to know that our customers are being able to view this content, this video content, and it is streaming in their homes. Well, this is what my team was all about anyway. I got that. But what I also realized is that my company did not create video. My company wasn't responsible per se for the actual video images. If you follow me, what the company was responsible for is providing the piping of that content getting into our customer homes. So I was like, okay, got it. So on that particular channel, is that the only type of content that person can get? And I'm asking the leading questions. No, it comes through paid per view, as you know. I hope none of you guys are watching that, but anyway. And so now I start talking about. So what I'm really testing, and what I really need to verify and validate, is that our customers can access paid content on our network? And the answer was yes. And so I said, okay, so what other things do our customers buy? They buy games, they buy live events, there are other movies that they buy. There's a whole bunch of other things that customers purchase on pay-per-view. And so then I asked, is there any reason why we can't get some of that other non-adult content in? Because what we're really testing is, can the paid transaction, is it taking place? Well, I won't get into testing, so I'll stop there. But anyway, so I made sure that the company needs were addressed without it having to go against the morals and the values of the people who were testing it. And we were able to do that. I also addressed the issue that having employees test adult content could eventually become a liability upon the company. And so then I was informed, well, no, because we've had each one of the full-time testers to sign a paperwork agreeing that they understand that they, from time to time, may be asked to test that. And I understood that, and I said, I understand that. And I understand that this individual had signed that. And when I questioned her, she said, well, I did it because I thought if I didn't, they wouldn't hire me. Yeah. And so then I pushed the button a little bit more. And I said, even though a person signed it, I ended up reading it. I said, but what they're actually saying here is that they understand that they may have to do it. So they will do it. But what if later that person conduct and behavior cause some liability back to the company because of the content that had been fed into that person's brain? And so then I got the attention of my senior team. And so partly, and I went there because one of the things I know for sure is that our mind is the center of divine operation. I know that. And so, and because I know that, I know it doesn't really matter that we put a cap on something and say, I'm doing it because it's for a job. It doesn't change the working because it's for a job of how the human brain respond. And nobody can say which employee is going to respond any way based on those type of stimulations that are going to the brain while they get paid. So we worked that out. And so here's what I'm saying. I say all that to say, think beyond the ask. If someone on the job is asking you to do something that against your morals and your values, try to think beyond the ask and become more of a person who can solve whatever the problem is for them without it destroying who you are. And if that's, and it may get to a place where there is no way out, but I want you to at least examine that. And that's what, that was, how I suggest that. Now, we know a lot is in the news right now about Me Too. So we know what that's all about. I'm not suggesting that if someone asks you to sleep with them or touch you inappropriately, and you know that you're not going to be sleeping or having sex with someone to maintain a job, I'm not asking you to go solution that, because that's just an outright no. So that's a little different. So I want to be very clear about that. I don't want anybody out there saying that I'm saying something that I'm not saying. Okay? So I hope you understand that. So I'm going to go ahead before I go to this next one that's written. A question from Danielle is, how can one ask for or negotiate a raise? Okay, so I will answer that. That's a great one. Without repeating everything I had said on that first question when I started, if you didn't catch that piece, please go back and listen to that, because this answer is going to build on top of that. I won't repeat all of that, but everything I said earlier about how you define your value and be able to answer the question of what your salary expectation is, then you building up on that. Now you're on the job and you know you deserve a raise. Again, I've been very successful at doing that. And I've also had people reporting to me who asked for a raise and weren't successful in getting it, even from me. And it's all in the how. But the how starts with the performance. So I have never gone and asked for a raise when I know I had not earned it. Okay, so that's the first step. And I have to say that because having been a manager and have led resources, people will come and ask for a raise and they haven't earned it. And people have come to me and asked for a raise even when I just gave them a need improvement on their performance review. I mean, I am still like, I remember December giving someone a below average rating on their annual review. And then we come back in January, the new year started, and this individual was sitting in front of me saying, well, what do I need to do to get a raise? And you know, my brain is going like, where's the gap here? I'm about to put you on a performance improvement plan and you're talking to me about a raise. And so I did answer that question. I was like, let's start with getting your performance up. Let's go there first. So I have to put that out there. But let's say you know for a fact that your performance is on par and that you deserve a raise. The first thing is that you're going to ask for it. And here's how you start. And you don't just ask for it one day and you let it go. I start leaning into my raise ask by letting my direct report know that I am interested in growing in the organization. And so that I want more and I want to do more, I want to give more in the organization. So I start what I call my own personal campaign. First thing I'm doing, I'm expressing it in my one-on-ones with my manager. And if you're not having one-on-ones with your boss, shame on you, because you should. And then don't wait for the manager to ask you for that one-on-one. Every person that I am coaching is getting one-on-ones. And most of my clients weren't even doing one-on-ones because their company wasn't promoting it and their bosses weren't doing it. So now they've asked for them. And your boss is going to do it when you ask for it. Just put it on their calendars as a meeting. And make it about what your career goals are about and what you can do to add value to the company. So once you do that, you'll start getting information back from your boss on where your boss is seeing your performance. And you want to home in on those areas that your boss keep talking about. You want to make sure that you're scoring an A in those areas. One way to make sure you're doing that is understand what is important to your boss. So a lot of times people just look at their job description and they'll focus down one lane on that job description. But what you're focusing on, you want to be certain that that's something that your boss is also valuing. Because the first hurdle in getting a promotion is getting the agreement and the buy-in and the alignment with your direct boss. Because very few people will be successful in getting a promotion if they don't have their boss as an advocate. Now, with that said, I know some people who've been able to go around their boss to get it, but it always comes at a cost. And so the better way, if possible, is to get agreement with your boss. And that's one way to do that. The other thing is for you to keep an excellent, excellent, not good, but an excellent account of your contributions that year to the company. And in that, you're documenting what you've worked on, and you're not waiting to performance review time to do that. And I know a lot of companies are coming up on that time period. You keeping up with what you've been working on, but you don't just, so most people fail here. They'll just say, I worked on XYZ project. Your boss typically pretty much know the projects that you worked on. But what I always tried to do was focus on my accomplishments, why this project was successful. It was successful because of my contribution. It was successful. Maybe one of my leads was leading it, but I was the engine coaching that person behind the scenes. And so you want to make sure that you're very clear. And I always try to come up with anywhere from 3 to 4 points on how my personal contribution was part of the success of this project or this effort. You also want to look back and see, what recommendations did you bring to the table? Maybe it wasn't even your project, but you contribute to it by making some recommendations, or you gave someone else, some advice or something like that. Then I'll also look at, did you help save money throughout that year? You start looking at where you were adding value. One of the things that I know that helped me in my career is that I have the tendency to volunteer to do extra things on a job. And so I always talk about the benefits of doing these extra projects at a company as well, and how that helps my organization, how that also reflects back on my leader, and not just myself, how it reflects back on my team. So you start looking at those things. So those are things setting you up for the ask, right? So you're prepared for the ask. When I've gone in and had to ask for a raise, I have actually gone in with a statement very similar. And forgive me, it won't be perfect because I'm just, bringing it up. I haven't had time to really write one out. But typically, let me think of an actual time when I was successful in getting a raise. I actually wrote down all of my accomplishments in a bullet form. So it wasn't like really, really long. They were quick bullets. I don't recall how many they were, but I in it saying that I strongly believe my contributions indicate that I am ready for a raise. I didn't use words like I deserve or I want, but I'm ready for a raise. And I never say a raise, I always say a pay increase. And then I always express conversations about pay around I want to contribute at a higher level. That's what I always say, something like that. I believe in the company. I believe in the organization. I believe in your goals or your mission. You want to know that, what they are from your leader. I believe in what you're doing, and I feel I can help contribute even greater. But this past year, I feel that X, Y, and Z has been a great, has added contribution to the work that we were doing here. And therefore I am, and I always do it with a smile too. I'm a girl, so I can get away with that. But it helps lighten up that little ask for me personally. But I'm not laughing at that time, right? Because I'm also a businesswoman too. But I always go, so I'm respectfully asking for a pay increase. And then we start the conversation. And when I say nobody has ever said no to me, and that is not me bragging, but it hasn't been a no. Now, what I have received is a not now. It's like not now. And so then I go with, okay, well, when? Well, we're doing X and we're doing Y and we're doing Z. And so we're looking next year. For me personally, and this is a personal thing, next year is never worked for me because I always feel, I could be dead next year. I don't know. I mean, you could not be my boss next year. That's been my attitude about when it's that long. Now, somebody's saying we're going to come back and have a conversation 3 months from now. I can give you 3 months. I can give anybody 3 months, but I'm not going to give you 12 months of my life on a maybe we're going to do that. So what I typically have done when I've gotten to that, when I've gotten an answer like that, yes, you have contributed a lot, blah, blah, blah. I agree with everything you said, but it's not in the budget. And that's usually what people come back and say. But I know for a fact they can always find money when they want it because it is there. So they're not really finding it. But anyway, so then that's why I say you have to take your career in your own hands. And then you make personal decisions about your life and that's what I've always done. And so I'm actually remembering right now, it's coming back to me when that actually happened to me when I was told a year that, yes, next year we're going to be able to do that. And I wasn't willing to wait 12 months to see if they were going to make good on that commitment. Now, there are other people who've done that and it worked for them. So I'm just saying, if you're more like me and you need something a little bit more short term than 12 months. So then I started putting my resume out on the market. And I'm blessed with that ability to land jobs. And so I did get an offer and I accepted the offer. And I went back to my boss and gave him my 2 weeks notice. Well, you can guess what happened. All of a sudden, they found the money to give me the pay increase. But not only did they find the money to give me a pay increase, and this is something I did not see coming, and I did not ask for it, they were also prepared to promote me to a higher position. And that's how I got my first IT director job. That's how I got promoted and became a director for the first time because I was willing to walk away because I understood my value and I wasn't going to wait a year to see if they could come up with the money. I was already a senior manager, so I really was just asking for more money to perform my current senior manager role, but they offered me that. So I had accepted another job, and that is true. And I can talk to you guys about that one later if anybody wants to know how do you take back an offer once you've accepted a job, because I've done that twice and still did not lose the relationship. And the one I'm telling you about, once I decided to stay at the company because I saw value in staying, and it really was the right decision because it just totally changed my entire career trajectory. It really did. So it was a wise thing for me to do, because some people will say never take a counter. Well, I don't believe that. I think you have to look at your situation and understand when to take a counter and when not to. So Danielle, I hope that helped. If not, you hit me up and we can get on the phone and have a quick chat, okay? Oh, thank you so much. The message here says, this is so good. I'm eating and taking notes. Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that, because that is the goal. And that's really my desire, that I know you guys, most of you are on your jobs, that you would just take some time on Monday while you're eating your lunch and just also not just feed your stomach, but also feed your mind and grow and grow. Awesome. Thank you. And so, and anyone else have any questions, please put them on. And Danielle, thank you so much for that question. I'll go ahead, and just try to do one more. It says, I am an unemployed IT manager, and an opportunity to be head hostess at an upscale restaurant has come to me. I'm trying to decide if I should take the job. Okay. So I did answer this, and she did reply back. So I sort of know a little bit more than just about the situation. So this person was fired from a job, lost a job, not just laid off, but the company let her go, and they said it was based on performance. And so she's had difficulty in finding another IT position. And so she needs income, and now she had this opportunity to become a hostess at a real nice restaurant downtown Atlanta. So my advice was this: your situation. If you're at a place where you're about to lose your shelter and food and all that, then you do what you have to do. And if that is being a hostess at a restaurant, then you do it. But you hold your head high and you keep looking for the type of employment you want. If, however, you're in a situation where it's not that dire, then I suggest this. Find some work, even if it's volunteer work that you're doing, that's in alignment with where you want to stay and where you want to go next, right? And so what I mean by that, since she's in IT, there are so many nonprofit organizations that need volunteers to come in and help them with their IT, work, whether it is troubleshooting, whether it's just helping them understand better how they can set up their networks and stuff like that, whatever. Find a way to do that. Sometimes it's volunteering at your church while you're still, and perhaps you're still doing the hostess position, right? And the reason it's so important to maintain something in your desired career field and path industry is because the further you are the longer she's unemployed and she's not doing work, it's going to be more and then it just shows that during that time she was doing something totally unrelated to what now you want me to hire you for. You're going to be pushed back on that list of people being interviewed for sure. I can assure you that, unless you find a friend or someone who really know you and understand your previous work to bring you in. So you always want to be able to show on your resume and in conversation that you've stayed in the game in some form or fashion. And it doesn't matter that it's volunteer work or not. The point is that you're doing the work, even if you're having to do this other piece. Now, I've gone to some seminars and workshops where people were saying, no, if it's too far removed from what you do, don't do it. Well, I'm just saying, you need shelter. Your basic needs have to be met. And if that is the only way for a temporary period you can do that, then you may need to go and do that while you're still finding a way to stay in your current field. And the best way I know to do that, if you're not being paid for it and you can't get somebody to hire you, is to volunteer. Because oftentimes, and when we do our volunteer work, once you're giving back, you start feeling a whole lot better about yourself and your situation, but you're also networking. There are people, and there could be opportunities to come on full time in some cases, where you're working as a volunteer, or you definitely could be referred by someone that you're working with while you're volunteering. So the key is always try to make sure that you don't have huge gaps on your resume, even when you're unemployed. And I even tell my college students that as well. When you get your summer jobs, try to get the job in the field or something close to what you want to do when you graduate, because now you can show experience on a resume versus just saying, I just need to make some money, so I'm going to go over here to Dunkin's Donuts and be a cashier for the summer so I can be able to buy me some cool, this is what actual girl said to me, some cool shoes for homecoming. No, baby, you need to work, then work. I'm not opposed to work. I'm an advocate of work, but try to get that work in the area where if you want to be in marketing when you graduate, and this is what she wants to do, then look for that job where you're doing some marketing work. or if you have to work behind the cashier, be a cashier at Dunkin's Donut or some other type of retail place, then do the volunteer work then, right? You know, I hear people say, I couldn't get an internship. And I'm like, there's so many people out there will be willing to bring in interns. And so they may not be willing or have the funds to pay you, but they'll be willing to do it. So maybe you can do something like part-time or even short-term, even not even 20 hours a week, but maybe it's once or twice a week that you're doing something in your field. And that's what you put on your resume more than anything. Okay, guys. Oh, Austin said, this is good. Okay, I read that one. I'm going to just go back up really quick and see if there was one last question here before we sign off today. Okay, so this one was, so I need to ask for a one-on-one with my boss. Absolutely. And so this is good because I don't know who your boss is, so I can say it without it being personal, because it is the truth though. Shame on your boss if he or she are not doing one-on-ones. That means that boss has missed an opportunity to better understand who you are and what motivates you and what you need back from her or him, and what you need back from the company. And so that's a huge miss from the leader perspective. And then from your side, that person doesn't know you as well as they could and should, meaning that they don't really know what your goals, your dreams, and your aspirations are, and how to better utilize you as an employee as well. Because once we know that, then if I know someone is wanting to be promoted, I know how to start navigating some more projects that give them greater visibility. Because here's the other thing, in most companies that I've worked for, a promotion was not just the sole decision of the direct report. So it starts with that person that you're reporting to, but it usually goes up to a committee, and that committee may be among all the directors in that organization. And depending on what the promotion is too, it could have to go up even to the VP sign off before that promotion is actually approved. But the thing is, it's so important to have visibility when you're in these corporate companies. And part of what I've looked for and looked to is for my boss, after having conversations in a one-on-one, is to make sure that I'm on high profile projects so I can get that level of visibility through the organization. Because I cannot tell you how many times I've sat in meetings where we were looking at who was going to be put up for promotions, and you sit at a table and other leaders are saying, well, who is that? I haven't seen her. What does she do? And then that person, direct boss, is saying, oh, she's like this superstar. And then the rest of us sitting around the table is like, I think I may have seen her once in the ladies' room. You're not a superstar if no one else in the organization know your work outside your manager. And the manager won't know how to really help you if they don't really understand where you want to go. And I always tell people, don't wait for your boss to determine where you're going to go, how much money you're going to make. And those one-on-ones is your opportunity to help direct them. And I refer to that as managing up. And it is our responsibility to manage up. You may not have the title manager, but you are the manager of your career. Okay? Hey. Oh, thanks. She shared that. Amen. Hey guys, so that's it for Lunch and Learn today. I'll see you next week. If you have additional questions, again, you can always send me questions on LinkedIn, private message me on LinkedIn, or you could go to my website, YvetteGavin.com, and go to that content page. In the subject, you can just put in, some people just put in L&L question, Lunch and Learn questions, and I will answer your question directly back to you. And then over time, I gather questions and hold a live session like this and bring some of those questions and answers to a larger group. But I will always answer you. Again, it may not be immediately, like it may not be that same day, because I'm really busy, and I'm not lying about that. And then when I'm in coaching sessions, that person has my total attention. And oftentimes when I come out of a session, I need a good 15 to 30 minutes just to prepare for the next person. So it could be like the end of the week by the time I get back with you. Also, guys, I'm personally inviting you out on next Thursday to the Barnes & Noble on the Georgia Tech campus for our live talk there and a book signing. And I will be talking about how to land your first real job. So if you have a college student and could benefit from this, we have a lot of graduates coming up in December. So, and people are looking, and now is the time that your graduates should be looking for a job. I'm working with several people right now who are graduating in December, and my clients are interviewing. And so the goal for that I have for each of them is to have them employed when they walk across that stage in their desired field. That's the work that I'm doing with them. And I'll talk a little bit about that next Thursday at Georgia Tech. You don't have to be a student at Georgia Tech to attend, because it will be held in the Barnes & Noble bookstore. Okay, guys, see you next week. Thank you all, and have a wonderful Monday.